In the fast-paced world of business, finding a clear path to profitability can be a challenge. Welcome to 0 to 100 with your host, Jared Guy Randolph, seasoned business and finance expert. Tune in for actionable insights and strategies to accelerate your business success.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to 0 to 100. This week, I am excited to welcome Carl Gould, who is a regarded business growth strategist. He has founded 3 multi-million-dollar companies. He is now the founder and chief growth advisor at 7 Stage Advisors. He's helped build over 5,000 companies. He has trained and certified over 7,000 coaches worldwide. He is a best-selling author, and he is on national news regularly. We're going to cover some incredible topics that are going to be game changers for all of you business leaders out there. We're going to talk about everything from defining who your actual avatar is, and it may not be who you think it is. We're going to talk about how you go through the 7 stages of business growth, the 2 types of entrepreneurs that are out there, and how you as a business owner can figure out what your blind spots are, get through them, build a successful business. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Jared Guy Randolph. I am the founder of BoxFi. We are the nation's leading payment consultant and business growth strategist. And I am very happy to share the network that I've built over my 25-year entrepreneurial journey to give you the insights and lessons to grow your business and become more profitable. Ladies and gentlemen, let's accelerate together. Carl Gould, thank you so much for joining us on 0 to 100 today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So we're in a unique position, audience, having Mr. Gould with us because he truly is an authority on business growth. He's a speaker, he's an author, all the good things that I just introduced him with. And we're going to be able to pick his brain in a way that most people aren't able to. And one of the first things that I want to start with, Carl, is talk about what the 7 stages of business success are, and then build from there so we can help the entrepreneurs in our audience really pick up on some great cues on growing their business and becoming more profitable.
Sure, right on. So in the early 2000s, I was studying under an organizational life cycle guru, Ichak Adizes, and a brilliant guy, terrific methodology. And if you've read any books on the life cycle of a business, this is the guy who wrote the books in the early 70s. Ichak was brilliant in that area, and he did Porsche Motors and Domino's Pizza and the government of Mexico. And when our country was attacked on 9/11, one of the first phone calls President Bush at the time ordered his team to make was, he said, call Ichak. We are going to launch something called Homeland Security. We're going to have to hire over 200,000 people. He will make sure that we don't turn into a bureaucracy. We got to do it and do it quick. And so I was studying under Ichak, and I was on the team that was trying to take his methodology to the small to mid-sized business. The Adizes methodology is really prominent in Fortune 500 companies and with wide organizations. And ultimately, he chose not to bring it to the small to mid-market. But I have written this methodology that at the time I called the milestones methodology. And there are these 7 milestones you needed to reach as a business. And as a small to mid-market business owner myself, I said, well, in the life cycle of a company, there's always the second half. There's the bureaucracy and the death and the, turnaround and this dismemberment of this organization. I said, but a small business isn't going to go through that. They're small, they're agile, they can pivot. They're never going to go, they don't have the money, they don't have the time, and they don't have the people to go through like a total restructuring. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that a small business, they can pivot rather quickly. If we're selling the wrong product, just don't order it next week. We can go out to our social media, we can go out to our networks, we can turn around and do something very quickly. So I took the life cycle and I cut it in half. And I said, look, I'm going to take the growth cycle. There were 7 stages of it. And so I built what I now call the 7 stages of business success. And stage 1 is strategic planning, where you get your ideas out of your head on the paper and we make them compelling and inspiring. Stage 2 is specialty, where you become a thought leader and expert in your field. So stage 2, think like musicians, think a surgeon, a speaker, trainer, a coach, a thought leader. If they stop, the business stops. We need them. They love their job, but if they stop, the business stops. Stage 3 is the synergy stage. You're building an implementation team. I am so good at doing brake jobs. I need more mechanics to work next to me in the shop to do more brake jobs, right? Or more realtors in my agency, or more accountants on my accounting staff, or attorneys. Think those types of organizations as stage 3 company, where they're people oriented under a similar IP companies. Stage 4 is the systems stage. That's where we start to document, codify, and create the business system and the ecosystem underneath our idea. So think Apple. Apple went out of its way to be a closed system. They make it very hard to get in and do business with Apple. And they do that intentionally. They want to control everything start to finish. They're a great example of the corporate company that's uncorporate, does it their own way, and has gone out of their way to remain in their own silo. And that would also, I use Apple as an example because we all know Apple. But if you think other companies, like most of the companies you would drive by on your way home or to work, that are corporate companies, they have a single or only a couple of locations.
Right.
And they are now trying to systematize their business and become more process and data driven, not personality driven. And they're trying to be more professionally managed, right? Stage 5 is what we call sustainability. And that's where the systems are the star. And you're a stage 5 business because you are known for something other than the utility of your product and service. Okay. Rolex is no longer a watch. It's not a timepiece. It's a piece of jewelry. It's a status symbol. It comes with a certain implication, right? Starbucks is known for its experience. When was the last time Starbucks was accused of good coffee, right? It's been a while, right? They're known for their experience. And that's what we love about them. McDonald's, same thing. Convenience, the third community in the third gathering place in the community. And in stage 5, think of multi-location franchise type businesses, and mostly multi-location. Okay. Stage 6 is what we call saleability. That's when an asset is born. Okay. Now in stage 3, you hired your implementation team. In stage 6, you're hiring your management team. So your management team that you need for stage 6 as a minimum is your director of sales, VP, chief revenue officer, CMO, chief marketing officer, with somebody in charge of generating leads. And the third one is your COO, or the person in charge of fulfillment of the orders. Now, you'll note I didn't say CFO. Now, a finance director is one of your first hires, but we live in the day and age where this is a well-defined, mature sector that you can outsource. So you don't have to have them under one roof, but you need them. Right. So that's your C-suite. That's your management suite. And then stage 7 is the succession stage. And that's where a legacy is born. You can turn it over to the next generation. You can will the business. You can donate the business. You could keep it as an annuity, but it's running on all cylinders. And the day the employee number 1 of the business, you can fire employee number 1. You get to fire you. And when you do, the value of the business actually rises because of the great leadership you have put in place.
So let's recap that, because I think it's really important for our audience to have clarity around that. There's 7 stages, and all 7 stages happen to start with an S. You have stage 1, strategic planning. So that's basically knowing who you are and where you are. Stage 2 is your specialty. That's when you become a leader in the field.
Correct.
Stage 3 is your synergy stage. So that's all about having the right implementation team. Stage 4 is systems. So how you're documenting, codifying, and creating your ecosystem. Stage 5 is sustainability. So those are the systems that you're using daily in the business. Scalability is stage 6. So that's when you bring in your C-suite implementation team. And then stage 7 is succession stage, where you can basically step back as the leader of the business. And as you said, a legacy is born. Those are really key if you want to build a business where you do have succession. And not everybody wants to build a business that big, but if you're spending hours and time and passion in your business, you should be focusing on going through each one of these stages. So how can a business owner figure out what stage they're actually in?
So the overwhelming majority of businesses are in stage 2 and 3. 98.6% of businesses have less than 20 employees. 96% of businesses are under 1 million. And they tend to be stage 2 and stage 3 businesses. Once you get into stage 4 and above, these are businesses that do well over $1 million, because to go from stage 3 to 4, you have to have a layer of employee called management, and that management is not revenue generating. So this is this is a big part of it, because it's been a while since you've gone to your dentist, and your dentist wasn't your dentist. When you've gone to your accountant and your accountant wasn't your accountant, right?
Right.
And so there are a lot of businesses that are designed as owner-operated businesses. And I get it. People will say, oh my God, you don't be an owner-operator. If you love what you do, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Most businesses are. The overwhelming percentage of businesses are owner-operated businesses. And if you love what you do, operate your business. Go for it. The thing to be careful of is don't let the business consume you, and still have systems and processes so you can step away from the business, right? You just don't want the business running you. As long as you're running the business, you're okay.
So at what stage can you as the owner actually step back from the business?
It starts in stage 4. To some degree, stage 3, right? If you are, let's say you run a real estate office and you don't want to be the one going out, sitting at somebody else's kitchen table on the evenings and weekends, trying to get listings and, showing houses on the weekend. You can hire a bunch of realtors that will do that for you, and you're like the managing partner, right? Or if you're a law firm and you don't want to be trying all the cases or negotiating all the contracts, you can hire other attorneys under you. So that's a way to do that. So that's a stage 3 type business, but it really starts to happen in stage 4, because the systems will dictate what's happening at any given time. And there's just more predictability in the business.
So we're talking to an audience of entrepreneurs. We're talking to an audience of business owners. How do you decide who you want to be as an owner operator and what you want your company to be?
It's a really good question. The entrepreneurs tend to fall in 2 categories. First category I call is they want to make a mark. They have an idea, they've got a dream, there's something that they want to do. They want to put their stamp on their community or in their industry or in the world, right? I have a better way to make cupcakes. I just make cupcakes better. I want to show the world how good my grandma's cupcakes were. So you open a cupcake shop. Brilliant. Love it, right? They want to make a mark. And then the second category is, I don't want to screw it up. Meaning I've launched that cupcake, store, or my law firm or my accounting firm or my auto body shop. I've gotten some success. I've got good customers. I know what I'm charging. I know who I'm charging it to. I know how often they come back. I've got a good reputation. I have good referrals, good reviews online. I got to make sure I don't screw this part up. Right. And so we fall in 2 categories. Most entrepreneurs are in the, I want to make a mark. Right. And that will lead, especially if you're within the first 3 to 5 years of business, you're probably still trying to make a mark. Right. If you're a family-run business, second or next generation business, you're probably in the let's not screw it up mode, right? You are a steward of the business itself. You're a steward of the business system or the name. So first off, decide where you are, because when you're trying to make a mark, it's time to be bold. It's time to be provocative. It's time to take risk. If you're trying to make a mark, you're not trying to just get customers. That's not your goal, because you think you can do it better. So you are out to poach customers, right? If I've got cupcakes, I'm going to try to find people who like cupcakes. Well, guess what? They've been eating cupcakes from somewhere else. I'm trying to steal customers from a different cupcake maker, right? If I'm an accountant, most everybody's got somebody who does their taxes already. I'm trying to poach them because my way of doing taxes or bookkeeping is better than somebody else's, right? I'm trying to poach. That's a different animal than I already have a customer base and I want to keep them happy and I want to make sure that they keep buying and they remain loyal customers, right? So you have two slightly different approaches. Apple in the beginning, when they first started out, I mean, their commercials were throwing hammer balls at TV sets and blowing up the status quo. Well, they're the establishment now.
They are literally.
You know what I mean? Like they're not running around saying we want to blow up the universe, right? They're trying not to screw it up right now. But in the beginning, they were saying, listen, we're changing. We're going in any direction you're not, right? And so you take two slightly different approaches. Now, in business, it's your goal to get to the I don't want to screw it up phase. But we want to make a mark. And then because of that mark, we then want to get to a critical mass where we know that we're going to be successful as a business. You know, so if you think about, here's a good one. About 15 years ago, when my kids were at that age, indoor water parks started to get more and more popular, right? They wanted to make a mark, right? And now if you go to a lot of ski resorts, especially on the East Coast where we live, where it doesn't snow as much, you now go there and there's a water park at every, Camelback has one and Great Wolf Lodge exists and all this. Well, they were trying to say to the world, hey, it's okay. You don't need the sun on your head to come to a water park. Come on indoors. Well, they proved it out. Well done. Good job. Now they're not trying to prove themselves all the time. What they're trying to do is make small incremental improvements to their business to keep their current clientele and add little things that makes coming to an indoor water park really appealing. That's a good example.
So let's talk about what the challenges are that are around going from that survival to growth stage in your business. So moving from the making your mark to, I love how you put it, I don't want to screw it up.
Right. Well, the big thing here is one exercise that every business owner has to do is they have to make sure that they take a step back and understand who their ideal client avatar is. Right. So if you get the right client, ideal client, and you know what's going on in their life right now and what would trigger them calling you or accepting your call right now, that's the key. I'll use myself as an example in just a minute, but we want to identify who is the best beneficiary of my services and what's going on right now in their business or their life that makes calling you a necessity. So here's a good example. If you were a college, if you were a university, you would look at someone like you, someone like me and say, oh, well, they're a good candidate. They have kids or they are part of a family or they live in a certain area or they make a certain amount of money. So they would target me. I'll just take myself. They would target me and say, oh, that guy, Carl, we should start really marketing to him. Now I got 3 kids. My youngest just went to university just this past month. If you could send me all the college, university, recruitment information you want, I'm not listening. And the reason why I'm not is because my daughter chose her school. You're wasting the paper and the stamp to even bother with me because what's going on in my life right now? Well, right now, my daughter went to college. She's made her choice. But if you got me 2 years ago when she was a junior, you go into your junior year, now all of a sudden it's time to scout for colleges. Every time my kids hit junior year in high school, you could not send me enough information. I wanted to know it all. What is every college that fits their criteria? What is every school that has financial aid? What are the exchange programs? What are the studies? What's the sports program? What is it like on campus? All of that. I couldn't consume enough of it. I was voracious. You could not over communicate to me. But the second my daughter chose, my 2 daughters and my son chose their school, I might as well have been invisible to you.
So let's talk about this. If you really think about it, you're saying right now that the avatar for the college selection process in the beginning was actually you before it was your kids.
It was, yes. So, and that's a good distinction. To the college, I'm the customer because I'm paying. My daughter's the client. She's going. So they do need to appeal to both of us in our own way. It's got to have the right vibe and it's got to have the right study programs and the campus has to have the dynamics that my kids like. But at the end of the day, as a junior, she's a minor. By the time can choose for herself and be a legal participant in this, she's already in school. She's already made her decision. So you need to appeal to me as the parent as much as you do need to appeal to the kid, because since she's a minor, I have to participate in that decision.
So it's interesting you say that. Let's take if you're a video game company, you're a gaming company and you have esports. You have to appeal to the parents because they're the ones who are going to drive the kids there. They're the ones who are paying for it. They want to understand safety and regulations. But you also have to appeal to the kids who are actually the ones who are going to be engaging in those esports. And you said something really important, Carl, which I'd love to touch on, is that with the college example, you were the customer because you were paying, but your daughter was the client because she was going. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah. And so I like to distinguish between the two. One other analogy that many of the folks that are listening to this will relate to, and you may do too, Jared, I know that I do, is when we help our parents find what their senior living situation is, right? You and I are the customer. Why? Because we're the caretaker for our folks. And so it has to appeal to us because is the family support mechanism there and all that. But it's our parents that are going to be utilizing the facilities, right? So that's an example. So here's a good one, Star Wars, the movie, right? We want the kids to go, but we have to make it appealing enough to the parents to want to sit through it, right? Parents are paying. Remember Sesame Street, when Sesame Street came out, if you listen to the old Sesame Street, there was a lot of adult humor in there because they knew the parents would be sitting with their kids, right? And if there wasn't adult humor, the parents were like, I'm not watching this. This is terrible.
Yeah.
But they did. They were smart. Parents are the customer. Kids are the client. Another good example would be any sports league, right? If you're the NBA, there's a lot of controversy over the WNBA and how much should the women athletes get paid, and is WNBA making money and all this. But the NBA is really smart because what they're doing is they have their core audience, but they're trying to build other audiences, right? So regardless of how much the WNBA makes or doesn't make, it's never going away because what it does is it builds the brand, it brings in new audiences, it expands their reach. It's brilliant, regardless of the financial model. We can argue that all day long, but from a branding exercise, it's brilliant, right?
So this is really an interesting conversation. And it's interesting because most of the time when you're talking about your client avatar, there is you, the merchant, who has the product or the service, and then you have your end user. And breaking it out into two stages, meaning like the example that you gave, the person who's paying for it versus the person that's using it, is an interesting way of looking at it. So you might have a two-pronged approach as a business owner, that you have more than one avatar, because you do have to have the payee and the consumer. And sometimes they're not the same person. And it's interesting because in my payment consulting business, I work with a lot of different companies figuring out payment systems that help streamline their payments, lower fees, create more profitability.
Right.
What I realized is I was originally for many years marketing directly to the end user, the restaurant owner, the car dealership, the plastic surgeon. But what I actually found was I had far more success in gaining my traction with clients when I started to market to their service providers, which were typically their financial advisors, their CFOs, their CPAs, because they were the ones who were actually running the money and looking at the numbers and realized the impact that payment processing has on the profitability of the business. And when I shifted towards marketing to that particular avatar, that's actually my client avatar. They're the advisor, and then their client is the user. Everything completely changed in terms of traction, the amount of business we started bringing on.
Yeah. Who's the first person they're going to go to? Hey, Mr. Accountant, Mr. Attorney, I'm considering a switch to a new payment system. Can you have a look at it? What are the legal or financial implications? And if the accountant comes back and says, oh my gosh, I've got 3 other clients using that platform. Oh, it's a dream. You're going to love it. Well, they're very open. If the accountant says, well, I would not go anywhere near that, it's a nightmare for a variety of reasons, they're not going near it. So yeah, that's the same idea. You're right on. That's if you're a product or service company out there, just, be thinking about both, because there's always that hidden third party that helps make the decisions. And you want to make sure that they are as on board as the other.
That is really, really key, Carl. That's huge. And audience, I want you to hear that is you really have to think about how you're getting your client who's actually going to engage with your product or service to engage with that product or service. And sometimes they need someone else to advise them to do that. So if you are a senior care facility, you might be marketing to the seniors, but the reality is you're marketing to their family members because they're the ones who are going to be critical in making the decision to move mom and dad, aunt or uncle, whomever it is, into one of those facilities. So it's far more layered than what you typically hear in the marketplace of pick your avatar. Your avatar is someone who is 75 to 90 years old and might be going into a senior care facility. Making the decision for a senior care facility, because I've actually had to go through this recently, that is not a decision that you make alone when you're 80 years old. You are absolutely making that with your family. So your avatar is the family member, not necessarily
That's right.
the individual who's going to be in the facility.
And when you're coming up as a business, the fact that you know that and the fact that you are sensitive to that and know how to communicate that is when you're growing up as a small business, what you want are passionate fans of what you do. Passionate fans, passionate buyers can tell the difference between someone who really knows what they're talking about and someone who doesn't. So I eat a very plant-based diet. And whenever I go to a restaurant, I can tell if they know how to serve a vegan, basically.
Right.
Are they did they Google it and say, okay, anything that's not this, or do they actually know? And I can tell the difference by a lot. So if somebody's passionate about a subject or passionate about a project, product, or a service, they're going to know the difference. So when you're coming up as a small business, this is where making a mark is different. If you're coming up and you really know what you're doing and you really know who you're serving, you will cut through a lot of clutter and get a sustainable business pretty quickly because passionate users of your product or service, they know each other, they travel in those circles, word will get around. So it's not just quality's always good. If you're a pizzeria, good pizza will always sell. But if you have passionate pizza eaters who know about you and it's good, you'll grow quickly and you'll get loyal followers as a result.
So it's really also compounded on top of that is that word of mouth marketing from your users, the people who enjoy your product or service, being able to say to their friends, best pizza joint in town, this is who you need to go to.
Yeah, right on. The word will absolutely get out because the more passionate somebody is about a topic, the more they get serviced well, the more that they'll tell people about it. I mean, we've all had that person in our life that came to us and said, oh, I went to this restaurant, had an amazing meal. You have to try it out. Or these shoes are unbelievable. They're so comfortable. I feel like I'm floating, right? And we like to share things that we find appealing because that not only enhances our life, but it brings value to our networks. So we like, whenever we get a good resource, we like to put a net over it and like, hey guys, look what I found. Check it out,
It's funny that you brought up the shoe example because about a year and a half ago, I bought my first ON or on running shoes because I had seen everybody wearing them. And for some reason, I would always see guys wearing them sitting in when we were on an airplane and you kind of like look down, you see their shoes. And I was like, I always noticed the logo. So I finally bought a pair, truly the most comfortable workout shoes I've ever had, and like running, walking shoes. And then after I bought them, I was like, these are the most comfortable shoes ever. You got to get these to like all of my friends. And they're like, why are we talking about shoes? I was like, because these shoes are freaking awesome. They'll change your life. So yeah, that is very true. Once you get somebody in your product, I kind of want to shift because I want to talk about something that I think you can really help the audience with. And that's about how you generate revenue in challenging times. And let's say you're in a down market. What is one of the fastest ways that you can stand apart from everybody else who's in your crowded market space and generate more revenue no matter where we are in the economic cycle?
Yes, this will sound counterintuitive, but in volatile times, in down markets, it is, if you look at your pricing strategy and you make sure that you have a premium high ticket or high priced offering. Pricing is the number one way that you communicate with your clientele. As soon as you advertise your pricing, you do two things. One is you tell them who you are. I'm the premium version, I'm the mid version, I'm the economy version. And they're all good. There's buyers for all three. So you don't have to say which one's better than the other. But one thing that either if you are among the highest price or among the lowest price, people will consider you to be an expert in your field. So Walmart is thought of as an expert and they're the lowest price. They're like, well, how can they bring you that product for that price? It's unbelievable. Well, they're Walmart. They figured it out. They figured out how to get all the inefficiencies out of the supply chain and bring you that product cheaper than anybody. And then there's the high range where you say, wow, how do they get that much for a watch or a shirt or their service? And they say, wow, that's interesting. They must be an expert. Well, during downturns, we as buyers defer to experts. And we are often willing to pay a premium for that expert, not because we have more money, it's because we only have one chance with our money. And we believe the expert represents lower risk. So if you said to me, well, Carl, you can take this taxi or this car to the airport and you should make it on time. I kind of know my way and it's $100. But the next car that pulls up says, I guarantee you'll make your flight. If you don't, I'll return the cab fare and I will refund your plane ticket. But I charge $120 for the ride. You're likely to pay the extra $20 with the guarantee you're going to make it on time. And you don't know if that one driver is better than the other, but you are going to assume they're better. Well, if they're willing to take that much risk or they're that confident about their service, they must know something that the other guy didn't. So I'm going to pay the 120 and I'm going to go with that service.
And also with the premium pricing, you're benchmarking. Okay. So there's some people going to say, oh, that's absolutely too expensive. But when you cater to someone who is at a higher income bracket, what they're looking to do is they're looking to do two things. They're looking to buy status or buy back their time. And if you provide a product or service where they can buy back their time, no matter where the marketplace is, they will seek out that expert who's going to help them buy that status or buy back their time. It's a flight to quality at the end of the day. And then on the other end of the spectrum, the lower end of the spectrum, if you have a cost savings associated with your product or service, like a Walmart, that lower end of the marketplace, that lower end of the socioeconomic scale is going to flock towards you. It's that kind of missing middle, which can be challenging. And there's such a vast number of that missing middle that has a ton of options out there. So catering to either the high end or the low end is probably the way to go. And I'd love your thoughts on when you're a business and you're starting out, whether or not you should actually focus on maybe that higher end product, because that's an easier, and I'm saying this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's an easier target to go after versus trying to go to the lower end of the market, which tends to be crowded with a ton of options.
Yeah, it is easier for us as small businesses, and I count myself in there. It's easier for us to be at the higher end of the market. The lower end of the market is way too much of a volume play, and it takes way too much cash. If you want to go into Walmart, that's great, but understand you need $250,000 for the product and another $250,000 in inventory to hold yourself off for 6 months before you ever see a dollar, right? So can you do it? You can get there, but it's a much more of a volume play. You need a lot more in capital expenditures and investment. Whereas as a service company or a small product company, being at the higher end, having your signature craft beer or your signature snacks, that sort of thing, it's much easier to be at that higher end and appeal to the people who would be willing to pay it and really value what you do.
I also believe that at that higher end of the market, the story and the founder's journey, of course, it's all about what you're doing to solve the problem that your end user, your customer, your avatar has. But it's more important to actually understand how you've developed that idea, that product, that service when you're on the higher end, and you can play to that more. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it comes back to understanding the client really well. You could play in the areas of the market that you either have expertise, experience, you understand it, and you can relate to them. customers are incredibly sophisticated now, of all ages, and they've been well educated by the Amazons and the social media influencers and the Targets and the Walmarts of the world. These are sharp people. They know what they want. Customers are no dummies, and they know what to expect, and they have very high expectations of us. Again, if you can meet those expectations, they can see through it. And you might fool a couple of people a few times with a flashy promotion or all that. But today, the internet will eat you up, eat you alive if you try to screw people over. They just will. The negative press, it's not about making a mistake, but it's about consistently trying to screw people. The internet will catch up with you. It's forever, it's immortal, and it goes forever, and you can't run from it.
Well, that kind of plays into the idea of the enemy framework. And a lot of other brands can use the negativity around your brand or the negative customer reviews, et cetera, to say, well, this is, and it's a fact, this is their star rating. This is what the Better Business Bureau has given them in terms of their point system. This is what their customers are saying. So you have to be very careful because those reviews, you're right, Carl, can make or break your business. And while we're on this topic, there's something that I want to talk about because I think it really plays into creating more profitability in your business is benchmarking, because I think it's really important. Should you be comparing your product to other like-kind products or other ways of getting to the goal? And I'll give you an example. What I did for many years with our payment consulting business is we provide payment processing services. And with those services, we were comparing ourselves to like a Stripe or Square and what their cost was and what the savings would be for using our services. But what we actually started to shift to, I'd say over the last 6 months, is no longer doing that apples to apples comparison, but making the comparison of we could save your business an additional $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a month by lowering your payment processing fees. This is what you would have to do to your business to make that additional $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. It would be a large commitment in time, a large commitment of money, etc. And I've noticed that the response is far bigger and more organic than trying to say, hey, this is how we're benchmarking ourselves against the giants.
Yeah, so you always want to know what your competitors are up to because that's how you'll be compared for sure.
Right.
One of the things that we like to do with our clients is our clients will say, I want to be different. How do I differentiate myself? How do we stand out? And what we've found is that innovation in one industry came from the front lines of another industry. I want to find out, I want to benchmark myself against my competitors. I want to benchmark them against the best in class in any industry that I'm in, but also any other industry that I'm being compared to, right? So for example, I'm a tennis fan. I like to go to the US Open. That's tennis, right? But I'm also a football fan. I'm also a baseball fan. I go to various events. So the US Open does a good job of saying, wait a minute, during our tournament, people have other choices. They can go to a baseball game. Basketball's just getting started the preseason, right? There are other sports that are happening, preseason football. There's a lot we can do. So we're not just fighting for the tennis fan, we're fighting for the sports fan. So I do want to benchmark myself against other industries and other things that my clients like to do because I'm competing against that as well. So if I'm a Rolex, I'm not only comparing myself to other watch brands, I'm also looking at other jewelry brands and other status symbols. What's another $20,000 piece of something somebody can buy as a status symbol? And I want to make sure that they buy my watch and not your jacket or your necklace or your weekend vacation somewhere. You see what I mean? Your Necker Island weekend vacation with Richard Branson. What's going to say I've arrived? Well, this thing, what I sell, but there are other things. So I want to be aware of what's going on with them as well, because that's what our client's going to be looking at.
And I think it was Rolls-Royce. They actually started about a decade ago doing all or most of their advertising around putting one of their $300,000-$400,000 cars in front of a $20 million home or a $25 million private jet. Because that comparison, that benchmark of, based on a private jet, which is the ultimate in luxury, or this $25 million estate home, this is cheap in comparison to spending $20+ million on a luxury item. So that's one of the things that you can look at to differentiate yourself as well within any marketplace that you're in. Sometimes it's not just quality of product, it might be the cost associated with that particular item for your market segment.
Yeah, the exclusivity, or what did you have to pay to be at that seat, to get that seat at the table?
There's one last thing I really would love to, before we go into our rapid fire session, that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. And that is finding out or figuring out what our blind spots are as leaders that are holding us back from building more profitable companies.
We actually have a formula that will help somebody understand what their blind spots are. And there are 4 quadrants in a business. There's strategy, biz dev, ops, and finance, essentially, right? And there's subcategories underneath those, but those are the 4 main ones. And you tend to be strong in one. You tend to be okay in the other 2. There tends to be one that you have a blind spot in. And we call it the diagonal opposite quadrant. So if you're a strategy, results-driven person, you tend to struggle with process. That tends to be a blind spot. If you're a process person, your blind spot might be getting results or urgency, meeting deadlines. If you're a biz dev person, finance tends to be your blind spot. If you're a finance person, biz dev tends to be your blind spot. It's the diagonal opposite quadrant that creates the blind spot, right? So you're driving in your car. You can see the seat behind you. You can see the seat you're in. You can see the back seat in the corner, but you can't see right around that little corner. So the seat next to you is the one that you need somebody to look in to cover your blind spot. Same thing when you're in a business is one of those quadrants will almost always be a blind spot. And what we've learned over the years since 1990 is that 10 to 30% of growth and an impact, immediate impact, is sitting in your blind spot.
Wow.
Just by uncovering what's there. We call it the untapped potential and hidden value in a business. It's sitting right in your blind spot, 10 to 30%. It's not hard to extract. It's either internal in your cash flow management or it's external, your relationship with your clients, but it's usually very easy to extract because it's sitting right there.
Awesome. And this, Carl, is one of the reasons why you've built so many successful businesses for yourself and others as well. Let's move into our rapid fire section. You ready to go?
Ready to go. Bring it on.
So, coffee or tea?
Tea.
If there is a zombie apocalypse and you have to leave your house and protect your family and you can only grab one weapon, what weapon would that be?
Ooh, one weapon, a machete.
What is your favorite business quote or phrase?
Your playing small does not serve the world. You cannot build people up by playing small. You need to play big. I am massively paraphrasing Marianne Williamson here, but you're playing big shines a light for others to follow.
Beautiful. What is one of the number 1 business books that you suggest our audience reads?
Business book. It's kind of 2 sides to the same coin, but I like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant. Those 2 are very side by side, those books. One are the fundamentals. That's Rich Dad. That gives you the approach, but Cash Flow Quadrant to me is where the rubber hits the road.
Noted. I am not familiar with that book. That's going on the list. So for 2025, give me 3 money-saving tactics that our audience of entrepreneurs and business owners can do to create a more profitable business.
First thing is minimize your salary and maximize your investment in retirement and other vehicles. So stock plans, buying real estate, becoming your own bank by having an indexed universal life policy where you pay yourself and life insurance policy buys your assets. You're not in the business you think you're in. You're in the finance business, and your ability to handle debt, your ability to use some of the tools of the rich that now for the first time really are available to the average person, where you should be putting your money first. Your business is a lead generator to assets. Your business has a profit and loss statement. You make enough money today, and all that ensures is that you have a job tomorrow. So minimize what you pay yourself, maximize what you put into assets, because your balance sheet is your true wealth of your business.
That is key, guys, that your business is a lead generator to assets. I absolutely love that. So let's say you're a business, Carl, that is doing 10 million in annual revenue, and Jared walks through your front door and hands you a $300,000 check. how would you suggest that the business owner invest that $300,000 to help double their profits over the next 12 to 24 months?
Well, if I'll take your question literally, if you gave me $300,000 and I was a $10 million business and my goal was to double my profit, what I would do is I would invest in a deep dive into my financials, and I would be looking for all the hidden cash flow in my business. Again, there's 10 to 30%. So I can take, so that means there's $1 to $3 million hiding out there, and I can find it. So I would look at my pricing strategy, number one. I would process map start to finish from the time I get a lead to the time that I put the money in the bank from the sale. That's called your throughput. I would take a deep dive into that, and I would say, where are all the leaks in the bucket? And I bet you there's a few. There's at least 10%. And then I would look at probably a 10% hike in pricing. There's a whole methodology that goes through that. That's going to get you minimum 20%, if not more, immediately. And as a $10 million business, I just made you $2 to $4 million on a $300,000 investment.
What has been your biggest mindset shift that has created the success that you've built in your business?
So the biggest thing for me was building team. Like when I got into my first business, it was a construction. I was a contractor. I had a landscaping company, and later I had a building and home construction company before doing the coaching and consulting business that I had. And I always found that it was building a team of people that could run and help me run as fast as I wanted to go. And so that team was either my internal team. So for example, I've always believed, and I always tell everybody, your first hire is a financial person so they could tell you what you can and can't do, right? They track your numbers. And then I'm looking for people who could be affiliates who can help me accelerate my business plan. Either they know somebody, or they're either a client or a referral source, or they're a source of capital, or they know somebody. But I'm looking for people that are excited about my model and are willing to help me get there.
Beautiful. I love that. Carl, tell our audience where they can connect with you.
So best place to find me is on my personal site, Carl360, CARL360.com, Carl360. On there, we have a gift for all your audience. We have something called the free business analysis. It is a 2-hour consultation. We take you through a 4-page process that will show you how much money you're leaving on the table with your business in its current form. And at the end, we'll give you 5 ways to grow your business that you may not have thought of at the end of that. It's free. There's no obligation. And that's our gift to your audience.
That's awesome. Carl Gould, sage wisdom. You are a guru. Thank you so much for spending time with us and joining us on 0 to 100.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for tuning in to 0 to 100 podcast. We hope you feel inspired and ready to accelerate your business. Remember, your journey to success starts with a single step. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for greatness. For more resources and show notes, visit jaredguyrandolph.com. We'll see you next time.